Over in France, things get worse with the migration crisis in Europe. And you would have thought that they would have woken up by now and realised, hang on a minute, people aren't quite on board with the direction that Europe is going. I mean, just look at the EU elections, just look at the elections in France, for instance. Have a look at the elections across Europe, where people have fundamentally been turning to right-wing parties that are running on an anti-immigration basis, much like Reform in the UK is now doing and will romp it in next time they have a general election there. But outside of parliaments, you've got to deal with courts. And a court in France, the National Court of Asylum, has decided that every single person who lives in Gaza now has the right to asylum in France. They can register as refugees. Now, this all started on the basis of a case of two people, a mum and a son, who had fled Gaza basically straight after October the 7th and tried to get into France as refugees, and they were denied access as refugees because they were deemed to not be persecuted at the time. But the court has now changed its mind. This is from a report in Europe. It says the CNDA, that is the National Court of Asylum that I just mentioned, the judges ruled that the conditions had changed in Gaza and that the persecution by the Israeli army was now systematic and widespread. Based on their case, the CNDA ruled on Friday, July 11th, that's Friday just gone, that any Palestinian asylum seekers could benefit from the same protection as this mother and son on the grounds that they were persecuted because of their nationality. And if basically these two have been allowed in, fundamentally because they lived in Gaza, it means it's open for everyone now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm not sure if it's kind of the same thing. I don't think it's really. I think these people would have been obviously in danger after the October 7 attacks and Israel's retaliation, and so they would have been in danger of dying. I'm not sure if that's the same thing as persecution, as in an ethnic minority who can't actually live within the boundaries of their country because their own government is sort of seeking them out to try and purge them. Yes, what Israel has done, you can say, was extremely heavy-handed, and it's bombing them, and aid is very limited. But I'm not sure if being the victim of a war is the same as being the victim.
But that's the problem, because that's what the court is now basically saying is persecution.
And that's the fundamental problem with the case. You're saying that the IDF, that the Israeli government is persecuting all 2 million people that live in Gaza. Sure, conditions are horrendous. It is a war. But fundamentally, Israel's war is not against Gazans. It's against Hamas. And they're not going out of their way to target Palestinians. In fact, they take more precautions to limit civilian casualties than pretty much any army in history. It also says that they're being persecuted on the basis of their nationality. I don't know how that works, given 20% of Israel is Palestinian, Arab, and they are not persecuted, and France does not recognize the state of Palestine. So what is this mysterious nationality? I don't know. Being a victim of a war does not qualify you to be a refugee. And the other thing is, why are none of Gaza's Arab neighbours taking in these refugees? Why will Jordan not take them in, given Palestinians are 50 to 60% of their population already? Maybe there's a reason.
Well, they won't take them because the Palestinian is basically the victim's victim, and they don't want to do the surrounding countries of what they would call the dirty work of Israel, basically by saying, we'll let you send all of those people over there so you can have the land. They would rather keep Palestinians in Palestine in danger for the purpose of not ceding land to Israel. And I know that courts are allowed to create case law, as they have in this circumstance. But the idea that a court with the stroke of a pen can say that everyone from a region of the world has a right to move to your country, in this case France, is insane. Because surely, as a sovereign nation, you ought to have the right to decide who you do and don't want to come in on the basis of potential ideologies or beliefs or whatever else. And this court is saying, no, bugger all of that. You just open the door. Everyone come in. This has caused massive problems in Europe already, and they're just adding another lot on top.
Yeah, and the thing that I think a lot of people either don't understand or forget is that prior to the October 7 terrorist attack by Hamas, Gaza was basically an autonomous province. It it ran its own affairs. It didn't have any foreign policy. It didn't have a standing up. But Gaza ran itself, and Israel was very happy for that because they thought it's just too dangerous for our troops to be in there. We don't want anything to do with it. You guys just run it yourselves, and there were different complaints about the quality of life there versus in Israel and all that sort of stuff. But so the people who actually put the Gazans in danger weren't Israel, it was actually Hamas. So to be honest, if Gazans actually came and said, we are being persecuted by our own government, Hamas, who are exploiting us and using us as human shields and depriving us of food and water and other vital supplies, which they steal for their own militants, I would give them asylum any day of the week.
Well, they are. There have been anti-Hamas protests by Gazans very bravely risking their lives to speak out against the jihadist regime, and a lot of them have been tortured as a result. So they do exist. But the immigration crisis is really rocking all parts of Europe. A town in southern Spain has been gripped by riots between anti-immigration Spanish people and quite a lot of North African migrants in the area. It was all sparked after a pensioner, an elderly man, was brutally beaten by a group of African youths. I'm sorry for the distressing image there on the screen, but truly horrific. So this senior person, he was doing nothing. He was just going about his business, and then he was set upon by a gang of North African migrant youths. Obviously, the community is now extremely scared and taking to the streets to, I guess, in what they see as defend their own people, given the police clearly aren't doing it. And of course, they're the ones being arrested and locked up. 10 have been arrested so far, probably more to come. But this just shows you the consequences of uncontrolled, illegal mass immigration.
And this is, I'm not defending violence on the streets, I'm not defending riots, etc. But what I am saying is that this is the direct consequence of governments not taking action. I mean, you eventually get to a point where people are so angry with the state of their country, and then you have something like that happens and it reaches a pressure point. And often when you reach those pressure points, people lash out and they do stupid things that they otherwise wouldn't do, and then you end up with a mob mentality, and then you end up with a riot. It was exactly the same in the UK. Of course, you'll remember those girls that were killed at a dance studio, a Taylor Swift thing that was going on there. And then there was misinformation put online saying that it was an illegal migrant who had killed them, and all of a sudden you've got riots on the street because people are so angry with what is happening in their country. I think that situation sounds entirely, possible.
No, I think that gives a fig leaf of justification for their actions, which I don't think is at all deserved. I don't think these are people who really care about the issue. I think these are violent thugs who are just using it as an excuse. And I think it's the same thing as the Black Lives Matter riots. You can't say, oh well, this is all the government's fault or this is all the police's fault because because a black person died in custody, so it's their fault that Portland, Oregon is on fire. Absolutely not. I think these people are criminals. I think they're thugs. I think there is a certain type of person who uses any excuse to play out pre-existing fantasies or pre-existing prejudices that they've already had. We know with the Cronulla riots, there was the supposed flashpoint of, an altercation between, I think, a lifeguard and some kids or something playing soccer on the beach. Next thing you know, it's being overrun by card-carrying neo-Nazis, card-carrying white supremacists, the sort of people I'd investigated, years before any of the supposed provocation took place. And these guys are just waiting for a chance to do what they were going to do anyway. And it's sick and it's wrong and it's disgraceful when the left does it, and it's sick and it's wrong and it's disgraceful when the right does it.
Yeah. Well, it shouldn't be done, but is the point not also that there are problems, particularly in Europe at the moment, that are ignored?
Yeah, they are, but it's like saying...
And these people, I agree with you that these people are thugs, but there would be a lot of people in Spain right now who wouldn't dream of doing a thing like that, sitting there very quietly thinking, well, at least someone is saying something about this.
But it's not even that. It's like, some black guys punched up this pensioner over here, so I'm going to smash up this shop over over there. Like, that's just, that's insane. That's terrorist logic. That's like saying, we don't like what the Americans are doing in Iraq, so we're going to kill someone in a shopping centre in Alberta.
No,
Like,
but it is true that
sense.
when you see instances like this, which are happening too frequently in Europe, of just random attacks, it sparks something in the community, rightfully so. And it's not just people taking to the streets. I agree, violence is never the answer. Thankfully, we have democracy. But what does the ballot box suggest? It suggests people are absolutely fed up with this mass immigration that is allowing unprecedented levels of violence in Europe.
I don't think this is ordinary people rising up. This is what I'm saying. Antifa is just waiting around for any excuse to go on a rioting rampage. You know, just as the white supremacists here and in other countries are waiting to do the same. It is extremists on the left and the right who are actually trying to whip this up. You can have a debate about migration. You can express your views at the ballot box. You can elect Reform UK if you want to, or AFD in Germany if you want, or Le Pen in France if you want. But going out and saying, I'm going to smash up a shopkeeper or bash up some random brown guy because he looks a bit like someone who did something like that. There is no excuse for that, no justification for it. This is not a popular uprising. This is criminal extremist thugs just using the excuse to do what they always wanted to do.